this is going to be a new show drop broken scripts. I'm going to talk about storytelling and script writing within screenplays, within editing, revolving characters, plot, or editing along the lines of that. There are a lot of ways in people see storytelling, and the way people do script writing is actually a lot of fun to do, because it's something that for a lot of writers out there, they actually want to drive their own creative mind and have the projects out there to the point where they will be remembered for doing something that they love. And most importantly, the thing when it comes to storytelling and screenwriting is that it's actually fun to do, because it's challenging and it's actually worth doing. And I wanted to do that on a podcast show where I talk about the way how I see script writing in so many ways. I wrote a script called History of Syntec, and that's something that one of the reasons for this show is to get the project funded. So if you guys are interested in early access to this episodes monthly, then you can check out my Patreon, and also have other things we're trying, maybe adding to TV shows that are not only Marvel or DC, but other stuff as well. So kind of like only movies in the building. That's something, a bunch of other things like that. Anyways, I talked about the art style of crafting villains, and regardless if it's TV or film, or for example if it's TV, regardless of how many seasons, I'm just going to focus on the villain aspect of all this. Super villains are a great way to have the most memorable characters that can stand out and through all media and video games and all these things. And I'm not going to talk about video games that much, probably at all right now. I'm just focused on the screenplay aspect of it. Characters that we see, that we grew up watching. For me as a nice kid, I watched characters back in the day where the villains actually stood out and actually made impactful things and made us think about characters and story and a bunch of other things along the lines of that. And there was a few handful of villains that are actually memorable these days. And no, I'm not just talking about Marvel DC. There's also so many villains out there that made an impact in a lot of stories, so we'll get into it. So the sense of a great villain, there's a lot of ways we can think about what makes a villain great. Is that it's the character is impactful, and actually motivations are clear and believable, because it's also about their past experiences and shapes and their wants and desires through a lot of things within their backstory and significance behind it. There are certain events within the story where the antagonist becomes evil, and there's a purpose behind that. So that's something that is very important to realize and think about how they should always have their own reasons for being within the story. This stuff mostly talked about as if it's one villain. However, if you have multiple villains, I will go a little bit in detail on some of those portions within this episode. However, I just want to let you know that it's mostly for like as if it's one villain throughout the story within the script. And basically I thought of the title broken script, so it's kind of like breaking down the script. So like instead of breaking it down, it's more breaking it into pieces and doing more deep diving into how can the script connect itself within itself. So that's something that I thought the name that way. This is going to be within the spoiler territory channel, so hopefully you'll enjoy this. I mean, it's also available on audio as well. There's a lot of things within the conflict within the villains. There's a lot of depth within themselves that made us understand why they're doing things in the first place, and they're able to have multiple layers of conflict within the story, and it drives the plot. And actually, if you write a superhero, right, how the hero develops themselves with the character arc, similar things will have to happen within the villain as well as kind of like a parallel of it. I'll go more a little bit detail into that in a bit, pointed about what's the key differences and similarities between the hero and villain, and how those two learn from each other, and the environment around them and the characters around them within the story, and what's going to happen within the story, within the point where things will happen. Something always has to happen within every scene, every sentence, every character has to say sentences that are important to the story, which all is important to them. It has to be something exciting. That's a lot of complex stuff, however, it will go a long way. Sometimes when the anti-hero or in the same sympathetic villain, all you see is they blur lines of what's good or what's evil. So if you find ways to definitely create these more realistic characters, you will be able to learn how it will be to also either like the concept of the anti-hero can resonate with the audience. There are traditional genres where the heroes and villains all find ways to find the root goal of mission within. So they always have their own individual missions, and there's always obstacles between the hero and villain, so that they find a way for them to come together in the middle, find ways to give the characters satisfying ending, satisfying in the way that characters are able to learn from what's been resolved around them. And within also writing, a balanced villain. When it comes to crafting villains, you have to find ways to draw inspiration from classic archetypes and tropes, and to understand how these can be used to, how effective these can be without falling into cliches, and to be reimagined for the storytelling that would seem timely. Let's say, for example, you are writing a villain where it's the same villain, but you're talking about the same character in the past or present or the future. Let's say the X-Men films where either both sides of Magneto try like these are future past you would see. But let's pretend he's a villain in the story where in the past version he was. So let's pretend it's both. The way you can share the story and you can create a tragic backstory for them, or a point where they would make how you can give them the motivations to the point where they're often driven by the complex and relatable motivations, and the fact that they probably won't see themselves as purely evil because they would believe that they're doing the right regardless of their actions. And one example is Magneto, and for example, he wants to commit to the idea of mutant rights with born out of his own experience, which makes him a compelling antagonist. Providing a well-crafted backstory for a villain to make them more three-dimensional. It's not about the backstory and depth of the villain. Let's take the Joker, for example. His mysterious past and chaotic physiology adds layers to the character, making him one of the most talented villains ever in film history. I'm talking about the Heath Ledger Joker. Whenever I watch that film, I never get tired of Joker. I see something within him that I find interesting and fascinating in the way Christopher Nolan and he brought the character to life. It makes it seem like the character actually had a true purpose of being there. For example, the Joker, it's something that, in my opinion, he made an actual impact within Batman's way. Just, for example, I saw the city of Gotham as a character. The surrounding environment felt like it was its own place, and that could also work as well. We could talk about world building and settings another time. However, I just want to focus on what the villain has done and was able to do so much damage to the point where one of the days that the Joker wanted to become similar to the Batman, and it was something about the Joker actually made impact within the film when it comes to Harvey Dent. There were two villains in this film, and one turned to do one thing without the other. For example, Two-Face wanted to do so much within Gotham and become like the White Knight in Gotham, and the Joker pushed him towards the edge to the point where Two-Face dude became his own villain, and that I believe that wouldn't happen without the main villain. So you also think about how you can shape the surrounding and to the point where the hero can be impacted and go through a lot of challenges in their own way, to the point where the villain would find themselves powerful in their own way, and because they would bring actual tension within the story, which is going to be complicated for the hero to deal with. And how easy story isn't a good story. Have the characters go through something that will shape them, and to the point where there's at a point of no return. For example, let's talk about Loki. Before the TVA thing, he's actually in the first Avengers film. He wanted to rule Midgard, and he wanted to find his way towards he wanted approval from Odin in the first Thor film, to the point where he was basically disowned. He decided to abandon their own Asgard's way, and he wanted to make his own path, and we see why Loki was like that. He faced circumstances that led him down a dark path, and the fact that he oscillates between villainy and redemption, it makes him a fan favorite because we sympathize with him. It's something that not every villain out there is worth sympathizing for, depending on the context. It's important to realize that the villain will have to become hateable. If you want a villain to be hateable, and unlike there has to be a reason for it. It just can't be douchebags for no reason or anything like that. It's something very important to think about. And one of the things I find interesting about Darth Vader, every time he's on screen, his presence feels there's an importance within that, and it's something I actually find fascinating about how the characters have been able to do that, because maybe it's the style, and I'm not just talking about his clothes, the helmet and all that stuff. I'm talking about the style of how characters shaped, though. How did the character get there to this point, or what happened, with Anakin to the point where he got to where he is, within the story, and him feeling rageful towards, the other characters who try to get in his way and push out things, and in his past, the characters in the villain's past that would make him feel like he wants to take down the entire purpose of why heroes were heroes in the first place. There are some build games that are actually really fun to play when it comes to villains. There are some times when I spoke about the Joker recently. I spoke about the Joker, and he actually has a girl named Harley Quinn, and he loves her. They love each other. How Harley stands out as a villain as well, because she's her own person. Don't just have a little villain who's in a relationship with another villain. Have them be similar yet stand out on their own. Have them become unpredictable in their own path, and capture each other's hearts, and also create madness within themselves within the story, and that you were able to see how that would work so well, because Harley Quinn would be a great example to take notes on. For example, if you want to understand how to craft someone who has a lot of positive energy and yet has motivations or evil towards Batman and all these things. And like I said, the entire thing of, for example, from being a character, basically it's important to think about the world building of it all, depending on how many villains you have or anything like that. Sometimes there are superheroes that have to deal with villains that are more grounded and more business-wise villains. For example, Lex Luthor has a corporation. Wilson Fisk, Kingpin is more of a street-level villain, so there are ways you can, and also the Penguin as well for Batman. But anyways, just using those characters as examples, they are grounded villains that have impactful things towards the villain that is so world. If you're interested in having characters that are grounded, you can actually find ways to make them find something within the experience and knowledgeable ways to the point where you can make them intriguing. Just you would see their reasoning for becoming villains throughout the script, and within the script you would see that they have their own dilemmas as well. They have their own paths to the point where villains may have certain obstacles in their story where the hero isn't really involved. Or, for example, Kingpin in the Daredevil series, he has a bunch of other things having within his city, and then there's this thing with Vanessa that he wants to be with her, but he wants to prove himself towards her, and also similar to Kingpin in the Into the Spider-Verse story. It's similar to that. It's where he wants to, his knowledge can backfire, kind of like how Dr. Octavius backfired on himself with creating the thing, and at the end, shutting the machine down, and eventually led to his own death. Yet the villain was memorable because there was something about Dark Heart that actually worked so well, because it's Spider-Man and was also involved in it. Yes, but the thing that made Dark Heart stand out when it comes to him and the machine is that this was his creation. The machine was his idea. It was something that he wanted to test it out, and he wanted to his own world, basically, or most of the little ship for the machines that his clothing. Yeah, the truth. Then if you want to think about it for that way, if you want to let a super villain where the actual style and the design and costume of them works well, you can, for example, if you're writing a book or story, you can describe the style within the character. The visual aspect of a villain can be under a visual aspect of a villain can be under, for example, like the Green Goblin, and there's the big glider, and then his mask or hood on, and something that is a great design, similar to how Darth Vader is, And that's very funny. But also consistency and longevity. Some villains become memorable because of their living presence. For instance, when it comes to consistency and longevity, some villains become memorable because of their living presence. And Darth Vader is why I mentioned. Just how can the audience, what do you want to do to the character to the point where the audience will feel respected, and to the point where they're willing to pay attention to the villain as something very important to think about as well. Regardless of the theme, if you can make it work, you can make it work with understanding how the backstory of the character and everything in between. And writers, for example, writers who create memorable villains often blend these certain elements together, crafting the characters with depth, ability, charisma, unique qualities. Iconic supervillains demonstrate the enduring power of well-crafted attentiveness in the story. It's also important to, and also the fact that the villain is within the screenplay. It's also important where the character in the screenplay involves careful consideration and attention to detail. For example, when you define the villain's motivation, you can start by understanding the villain's core values within themselves, what drives them, what the goals and desires. These are, if you want to take notes, for example, and take notes on what would make the villain stand out, and the timeline and the history of the character. There's this movie called Inside Out by Pixar, and the character Riley is, let's say Riley's the villain. And I'm not talking about the movie, I'm just saying the idea of the character, where you are basically the characters in your head. You are the characters. You see certain aspects, certain characteristics within the character that can shape the character to how they present themselves in the story and create the script to where, and you have to understand that, and that's actually interesting because you have to actually do that for every single character within your story, and they all have if you want them to have a purpose of being in the story, the role has to be important and they have to be impactful towards each other. Not more so impactful, more so the words compelling and intriguing. They will have to, what makes these characters stand out, what role of the story, why are they there, and also if you find a lot of characters in your story, it's important to think about, is it cluttered or not? Is it how many villains are there, characters are there, how many people are supporting characters in the story? All that will lead to making the hero and the villain work and not work within the screenplay itself. It's also developed a compelling backstory when you can explain how they become who they are and hide the pivotal moments and how they see their own world and get the audience understand the purpose of the story in the first place. When you find a villain, for a particular reason, and it's important to understand why, and it's also important to reflect morality and to avoid the quote evil for the sake of evil quote villains. And it's important to craft a character with complex moral compass, make them believe that what they're doing is right, even if it conflicts with social norms. This moral complexity will make the audience question their own beliefs and values, and they may see something within the villain and within themselves. And the idea of them, they will learn from, have the villain be a character the audience can learn, and that will draw a long ways and draw to make the villain memorable as well. Also, keep in mind about establishing a strong connection with the hero and exploring the relationship between them, and the villain should be more than just a simple obstacle. There should be a mirror reflecting of the hero's flaws, fears, and unresolved issues. To the hero living for the villain is very important, even if it's in adversary way. Developing a unique personality trait for the villain can give your character distinctive personality trait that will set them apart. These traits can be quirks or habits or behaviors that make them memorable, and traits can be used to reveal deeper layers of villain over time. That trait can be used to reveal the deeper layers of the character over time. It's also important to think about the dialogue as well, but the stuff that they say is truly important for character, especially the hero, but the hero's going to the hero to learn from the villain. They will both have to be intentioned in their own way, and based on their experiences, certain aspects of the mission, plot, or anything along the lines of that, it will help push your story forward to the point where it doesn't feel forced, and you can also reveal more about the characters within the story and have them grow surely and slowly and efficiently. There are times when villains will have vulnerabilities, and it's important to show the audience the moments of weakness or doubts of a new villain. These moments can humanize them and make them more relatable, and they can create a perfect but more brilliant opportunity for them to grow. Even if they fail, if they learn something, then that's something that will go a long way as well. Another thing is subvert expectations by surprising the audience by referring traditional villain tropes, changing their expectations by having the villain make unexpected choices and showing unexpected virtues. This can keep the audience engaged and guessing. Point of no return aspect of all was something that they can do, that they cannot take it back or say, or any sayings or actions that they do. That's something that they won't be able to go back from, no matter how hard you want them to try. It's also important to show consistency and evolution to ensure the villain's actions and decisions that will be consistent within themselves and how it allow them to evolve over the course of the story. If you're doing a TV show, it will take a long time, so it's important to flesh out and balance things out. Characters, including the villains, should have a change in response in the events and the conflict they face. Using symbolism and foreshadowing to employ a deeper connection with the audience to understand the villain so well at the point where they were able to connect with the villain in a larger theme throughout the story because of the impact. For example, as you write your screenplay, periodically it says the impact of your villain on the hero and overall narrative, ensure that their presence is felt throughout the story and they contribute significantly throughout the hero's growth. doing this, you'll be able to drive a well-rounded multi-dimensional villain that you can create a character that's not only enhances your screenplay, but also earns the audience's respect for the idea that you put in the Ontario and put into the development. Even if it's more than one villain, it can be done. Such villains can be such villains can become grow into the story, and the villains can have their story success really well. The villains can have a brilliant story, and the villains can have a successful story and leave a lasting impression on the viewers. To have the villain actually stand out, we have to also get them unlikable yet, for the sole purpose of the hero wanting to take the bad dude. When it comes to a villain being unlikable, you have to actually find ways to make them unlikable with a purpose, so that way the hero can actually take him down. Sometimes villains are equipped in their own way, with style, their own world, and a challenge that they have needs to make sense for the story. For example, their way is the only way, or somehow in the interesting way of the options the villain has to get to their personal goal, and to also think about they were also challenged by the hero as well, since you also have to keep in mind that you are also focusing on writing and equipping the hero as well, and every other character in between, since they are if you don't see the purpose of the true role for certain characters when the script, you understand that they have a purpose. Also realize why you have them in the script in the first place, why you have certain characters in your story in the first place. If they're not going to be there, it's okay to take away characters even in the story that doesn't make sense and won't pretty major impact within the storytelling. There are a lot of pitfalls and cliches that you also have to look out for, so please keep in mind that it's a lot of people who stories these days they're in the deadline, so they will have to rush through things, and you have the ability to take your time with the writing that's important to do so, but it will help you out understanding why that script is the way it is. Once you are writing the end, you want to rush towards the end, and because maybe you feel like you're in the deadline. However, the point is to realize as writers, when you write something towards the beginning, you take your time, and that's how it should be towards the end as well. For example, supervillains and their power, they want power, so what exactly does that bind for them, and what makes, how's that going to be what type of power are we talking about, what the point where it's emotional impact for them, and also involving, for example, the antagonists, help them or be their support throughout the story to set a path to help understand, assist the villain to guide them to where they need to be, and also have the supporting characters, the people who, and also have the characters to support the villain, be loyal to the villain as well, because that's very important to do so if you want to have a villain where they steer, they go back and forth and miss. And something to think about if you want to, it's something very important to realize if you have a villain mistrusting and the characters want to, the other supporting characters are guiding the villain. If you have certain allies in the story that are loyal towards the villain, and you want the villain to seem mistrusting of them and have the power to assume them, it can actually work if you find ways to make it sense for the story, and that's by giving them something to discover within the story, and have the villain experience something that can set them off, and the point where the reasoning for wanting the power in the first place is actually earned, not just spoon-fed to them. You can do this by giving them up, while the other ways you can help the villain get what they want without making it look easy is giving them a proper arc that can go a long way and find out points of achieving their goal or goals. A lot of characters in storytelling, they're there and they're moving, the story's moving forward, but they're not moving themselves. There's a lot of characters these days that don't really have a story arc or character arc to help them balance the story out really well, and I assume there's a lot of shows you're thinking about right now that do this, and so it's important to realize what to do and what not to do when it comes to creating all this. So there's this supervillain phrase that they would say to the hero that over the story, everything you love, and that's really useless and overplayed, and because it's something that the villain should always have something. So let's put the word down. The story, everything you love. What's that mean by everything? Everything. And the hero take something, a MacGuffin, or did they get a step ahead of the villain? Point where the villain would feel a little powerless. portion within the story, probably the middle of the story, or the beginning. There's a lot of ways that doesn't work, and I believe it. If you want the villain to be exciting, the villain will always need to have something. The villain will always need to have something powerful them that the hero would never think to get from the villain. There's always the villain will always need to have something to move their plans ahead, and to direct the actions of the hero taking toward everything they love will backfire on the hero, and the villain will take the advantage on that, and it will set the villain on a better path towards the victory, if you want to set it that way for your story. The characters will always have obstacles, and it's also that quote is that everything you love then is overused these days, so please understand why you see certain villains say that in media and TV shows, movies, and learn ways to move away from that and find your own ways to make the script work that will help your story and plot work. Have the villains. By doing this, you can have the villains being the best character you will ever write and being memorable. A lot of people who love watching movies and TV shows where all villains involved, there are a lot of villains that actually stand out and push really well, and regardless if they win or lose, the audience will see something within the villain that will actually help them learn something within themselves, and that's when I think that's really impactful. Something important to understand about the parallels of the similarities of what the hero and villain are. Is what is actually all the similarities, what is parallel in there. Did they come from the same background? Did they come from different points in their lives where to find common ground or find something within themselves where they were actually learn from each other and they would guide each other in their own path towards their own victory, and that's something that can work. If you want to use that into your story, you can have the villain and hero challenge each other to the point where they would question their own reasons for doing things, and it's mostly towards the hero. The hero would mostly be the one doing the more questioning aspect of all. They would think about why is the story like this? Well, not sorry, but they would wonder why their journey is the way it is, and why the villain would be making such an impact to the point where the hero should think about the fact that, and the hero should understand why the hero may understand certain points that the villain has made by communicating with each other. The hero were able to see what would make sense for them based on what the villain will be able to say certain things to the hero by communicating with them, by having the way the hero and villain communicate with each other to help the hero understand certain points and learn from the villain's mistakes and learn how to take that to the advantage and actually have them present certain motives within the hero story. That way they will be able to learn from the villain. That way the villain will thrown off, and since the villain won't see anything coming, there are certain things that by the hero and villain communicating with each other, they were able to see and understand certain points within each other. Yet the hero will be able to, for example, trust in certain points that the villain has made that would make sense for the story, and can use that to their advantage to the point where they can take the villain down. First of all, if they are able to understand and learn from the villain, and a lot of times when the hero's emotions are like they don't put their emotions on the side and they would go down a spiral, they would seem like they're doing a little bit wrong as well, and it's important to, if you want to avoid that, it's important to understand why people who write stories like that do that in those ways. Heroes may become stale and will need more compelling conflicts. In other words, having them consistently work and put effort, so when if someone comes to the parallels, it's important to understand that the heroes may become stale or will need more compelling conflicts. In other words, have them consistently work and put effort towards what they want, so when or if they lose, regardless, the characters, when it comes to the parallels, the heroes may become stale and you may need to find a more compelling conflict or conflicts within them, and they will have to consistently work and put an effort within actions so that way when or if the character wins or loses, their journey won't be a waste. And most importantly, make sure that if or when they lose for them, did they lose with at the point of like a reward, as a rewarding for them? In other words, did they learn from it? Did they learn what not to do in the future to help them achieve their goal for the next point of the story, or the next episode, or next film, or whatever you want to think about it, or next chapter, you would think about writing it into a book or something. And the scale of the actions and strategic moves can break or make the villain. So it's important to understand what type of quote power is the motivation for the villain. Yeah, hopefully that's something that will help you understand how and why villains work these days. At some certain ways, villains will be able to work really well with what they're driven, and we're able to help them understand why things are the way they are for them, and have them become a big part of the overall story within themselves. When you write a story, when it comes to a certain character, you have to write it down as if understand the entire timeline of their entire lives, even if what the hair to next, even I'm not saying to write that down within the script. I'm saying it's important to write down what's necessary for the story and the path that they are meant to be on, because their path isn't just a straight journey. They always, the characters in the stories always go one way or another. And so also think about the movie Inside Out. They not just spoke to you in the beginning about how you can certain ways to make the character move themselves to the story, and about their reasonings for being where they are and why they are and what they're doing, and their passions and their ways of finding their own selves, and having the people around them also be involved as well, because having certain characters interact with each other will help shape the character regardless, and that also works for the villain as well. When it comes to writing a script, what's something that you would get out of this, also something that the audience will get out of seeing your story, or something that will help them learn and understand the ways of life and find themselves within the story. A lot of people relate to certain characters these days because they see something within themselves, within the character that they are watching, and to a point where the characters are like a comfort for them. And this is comfort, this thing called them watching a show where they watch the same thing over and over again, just they're comfortable with it. So that's something that is also important to think about, is what makes the character comfortable being within the story, and what makes the character worth watching again and again, or so to speak. It's important to think about regardless if the actions are wrong or tragic to the point where it feels like it's unwatchable. There's always something the audience wants to see. Here's something that you can do to have your villain stand out a little bit more. You to have them see nothing good for anyone. So basically have the villain push around people and win their lives, and they can that way the way you can have them stand on their own 2 feet without any ally or army or quote army. Just it depends on how if you talk about the ending and the climax, how they would be facing the antagonist hero, and sometimes though some allies do or become part of the process of having the villain stand on their own 2 feet or stand up against the hero and protagonist. And another thing is with the way the character speaks, you have the villain mislead them, and another way they need to do is wordplay, have the villain mislead the hero as if the villain wants to get ahead, so you want to have the villain do whatever the villain can to have the hero back into a corner, or basically hold the character back from having any knowledge of certain information, that have the villain achieve the root goal or goals of small details and victories. There are times when there's a little bits and pieces that can lead to success for the villain, and this is something, in fact, it's happening because it's multiple small goals. This is a large one that it won't work. It probably won't work because it's something. This is one of the things you can do is give the villain small details of. There are sometimes when villains have a lot of things going on, and even if there's a lot of things happening with your villain, you'd have those small details that will win. So this is one giant win that we can succeed in certain bits and pieces towards the goal of what they want to achieve. This is one massive goal that probably will not work or fall off or anything along the lines of that. It does go, the small detailed victories goes farther than one main victory, more than, it depends on what type of victory you villain is, what type of villain you see when the pages when you write the character. That way you can figure out what will work for them, and having a personality where it's believable, where the pages come to life. That's something that's so important, and it's mostly about one of the ways you can help the villain be believable is do whatever you can to have impactful breakthroughs. That way the pages will come to life and your villain will stand out. If you show stressful situations make sense and give it a purpose, or it will be pointless. If you want the villain to die, make the hero learn why it happened, have a understanding of why all this led up to how it is. And really important is to respect the player of the game, aka understand the fact that the hero isn't just for show and vice versa, So have the actions towards the villain through the villain's story or timeline of events shape or sharpen both the heroes towards successful life at the aftermath after all this stuff has happened between the hero and the villain of the story. Change the perspective or the beliefs of either one or both of how the hero sees certain things because of the villain. Also have the hero understand the reasons why the villain did all these things, understand why they had stopped him in the first place, and the whole purpose of and the reasons between all of it all. That way the hero and villain have a interesting bond within the script, and by bond I mean have them trust bond well, and the pair will be brilliant that would work well on paper, and it's obvious to a point to focus on with the hero and the villain, have them work to the goals together at the same time whenever they both make their moves within the screen or script. So that's something very important to think about. Why characters are like this. There's a lot of ways in the trade-off of these villains where they just want to that character become lifelike, and have the villain become lifelike, and have them actually find something within themselves as well. Doing this for a reason, and you wrote these characters for a reason within your story, and so that's something to keep in mind on why the villain wants to have the story, do I own the story to themselves, if that makes sense. You can input fear for the villains who aren't on screen or by other characters except for the main character. For example, the episode of Teen Titans where Robin only saw Slade, that was a really good example. And make them invincible or imaginative for us, however present and terrifying for the protagonist. Upping the level of actions one step higher at a time, okay, consistency will go a long way. So most importantly about this whole villain thing, what are the results? Well, have the other characters other than the protagonist asking other characters or themselves outside of the world why or how this happened for them, or question realistic expectations, or if something happens with if it's an outcome that's actually really horrible because of the actions that the villain did, have the realistic expectations on what they individually and or collectively got themselves into, or led up to the moments within the situation while they won't stop. Also try to think about finding ways to stop the villain from causing more harm, or find a way out in sense of taking risk actions to save the day or the world, or another individual character from getting the same or similar outcome because of the villain. Also depends on the location, surroundings, environment, or the knowledge the characters have, aka for that particular instance. The world building of your story is very important, so don't think about it too much. Sometimes the answers will be right there in front of you. That's where your creativity can shine through. Understand the stakes, threats, or show away some characters that had close calls or a chilling or near-death experience with the villain, near-death experience with the character in mind, aka the villain or the protagonist. That's all I have for this episode. Hopefully if you enjoyed it, I'll do another episode next month for the next Patreon release, and I'll see all of you very soon. I appreciate all of you for listening, and it was a lot of fun. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of Broken Scripts, and the thing is that you want to really access to it, you can support me on Patreon, and you get some more really videos as well from my second channel, me reacting to a bunch of shows. So that should be a lot of fun to do. I will see all of you very soon. We'll make another episode next month, and I'll have a wonderful rest of your week. I'll see you soon.